The Disability Report with Karen Key.
Well, Catherine van Staden is someone living with spastic paralysis, and over time her legs become weaker and weaker and her balance becomes worse and worse. But she wasn't about to let this get her down, and she says that having a disability doesn't mean the end, but in fact it's just the beginning. And Catherine joins me now in the studio. Catherine, good evening. Welcome to the show.
Good evening.
Now, you've just come back from participating in the Fresh Pack Fitness Festival in series over the past weekend. How did that go?
It was great. I first did the 3-kilometer swim, open water, and that was in the morning, and then in the afternoon I did the triathlon, but I didn't do the run. I just did the swim and the cycle, which was an 800-meter swim and a 20-kilometer cycle.
Wow. And you have a specially adapted wheelchair with the hand cycles, is that
yes.
correct?
So the hand cycle is just with my arms.
So it needs a lot of upper body strength for that. Do you do a lot of training?
Basically, upper body training is what we do.
Tell me a little bit about you, because you seem to have this amazing mindset that you decided that this was not going to be the end of everything. This was just going to be the start. And you've literally taken off as this most amazing athlete. I mean, you're doing things that able-bodied people would look at you and say, I seriously don't know how you do that.
I think I had to come to a point in life where it was either sit in my room and, get depressed about my disability or, do something and live life. And it took me a few months to get over myself, but I think the turning point was for me, I started working for a disability organization, and I started to realize that having a disability is not the end of the world, and that, there's life after having a disability. So, joining CBM, which is an international organization, has pretty much shifted my mindset to what it means to have a disability.
Were you always sporty as a child? I mean, growing up, was it always something you wanted to do?
Yes. So as a kid, I grew up playing sports. I mean, I started playing sports when I was 4 or 5. My dad really got me into playing baseball. At that stage, I was running and, I was slow, but I played sports. That's what I did. And so, but I gave up on sports after I left school, and I didn't do anything for about 15 years. And then I decided to take on the Midmar Mile, which was back nearly 3 years ago.
You don't start small, do you?
No. Why start small?
Well, yeah, I mean, wow, okay.
Yeah, so, and it's just developed over time. So I took up Midmar Mile, and the next thing was, what should I do next? And at that time, I think we had an interview 2 years ago when I was going to do the Fresh Pack Fitness Festival.
Right.
And at that stage, I was still using my legs to cycle and to try and walk. And I tried that for a few triathlons and realized it's not my strength. So what am I doing? And December last year, I decided, let me shift to just using my arms because that's my strength. And amazingly, I got donated a hand cycle and a racing wheelchair. And so we've just gone from strength to strength.
Now, you've been competing not only locally, you've been competing all over the place.
So, at the moment, I've only done local races with my new hand. So the plan is maybe next year to go overseas and do a race. I would like to go to New York and do the New York Triathlon.
Wow, okay. Not just the marathon, you're going to do the triathlon.
Yeah.
I look at the things that you have to do and I think, no, seriously, really?
Yeah. I mean, at one stage I was just swimming and I actually found it a bit boring. And it was jumping in a pool and swimming a length and,
What else is there?
Well, there must be more.
Yeah.
So I went back to triathlons, and that's when I shifted my equipment to just my arms.
I believe one of your goals is to do the Ironman at some point.
I would love to do that. Yeah, that's a few years in the making, but that is the goal. At the moment we're doing Olympic distance triathlons. So that's the 1.5 kilometer swim, a 40 kilometer cycle, and a 10 kilometer run, all with my arms.
Wow. That's quite incredible. No, but your mission, I think, reading about you, though, is that you are passionate about inclusivity when it comes to people with disabilities, and that's a big thing for you.
Yes. It's, our organization, the CBM, is pretty much really advocating for inclusiveness. And so I've kind of caught on to that and just realized the importance of it. And I go to sporting events and it's me and I think at the Fresh Pack there was another lady that I knew, Sophia, who also has a disability. Otherwise, you just kind of you show up at events and they're not equipped to handle you, and the organisers don't know what to do with you because they don't. Yeah, so really, I want to go out there and just show up and be able to just show them that it's not that hard to host someone who has a disability, which is what I loved about Fresh Pack. You know, the organisers there, they really work alongside me to say, what can we do to make it easier and better for you? And it's great working with the team there. But my whole thing is to just, you know, if a race isn't accessible, I go anyway. And I
make it accessible for yourself. Do you think that's the problem, is that people are nervous to go to these things because they fear, like you say, that they're not equipped to deal with them? Or do you think it's because they're not equipped to deal with them that people just don't go?
I think it's a bit of both. And I found that a lot of the organisers, because people with disabilities don't go, they don't think about it. So unless someone shows up, they are not going to change the way they do their races. So, for instance, I took part in a race in Bella Bella up in Warm Bars recently, and it wasn't an accessible race, but I realized, I said to the guys, all they had to do was put a ramp down a pavement and it would have been a totally accessible race. And, you know, they wouldn't have thought about that if they didn't have someone like me show up who actually had a hand cycle that needed to get off the pavement.
So it's simple things, really.
Yeah, which people don't think about because people with disabilities don't show up at sporting events.
How do you think you can change this? I mean, other than being a role model yourself, I mean, can you get other people happy to want to go, first of all, and then to get the organisers to think about changing minor things?
I mean, my focus is on triathlon, and I find that in South Africa, the triathlon and the para-triathlon, which is for people with disabilities, is on the rise. And so it's a new thing. Whereas if you look at the swimming, you know, Paralympic swimming is big because that's what they know. That's what the South Africans know. They know the Paralympic swimmers, and so various sports. But for me, I have to just show up at a race. Like, and there's a race happening in Valde Free Wine Estate, which is you know, for Western Province Championships. And so I would like to get onto the Western Province team, but then they told me the race is inaccessible. So I said, well, okay, so what can we do? And they said, well, there's not much we can do. And the dam that you got to swim in the 800 meters, you've got to swim 400 meters, and then you got to get out and jump into the next dam. So I said, okay, well, I'll just crawl out and jump into the next dam, and I'll make a plan. And I'll go do the cycle. Unfortunately, I can't do the run because it's over rocks and boulders and stuff. But I think the hard part, and what I'm told, is that it's really hard for triathlons is to block off the roads in Cape Town. So to take a race and put it on the road is really hard. And so when I do the run, I'm doing it in a wheelchair. You can't do it on gravel.
So are you going to be doing this, as much as you can of this?
Yes.
Are you going to go? It's sort of a case, well, you know, I'm going and I'm just going to do it.
And I'm going, and so even Fresh Pack, I couldn't do the run because it's in the campsite, it's on gravel, there's just no way. And so I said, well, I'm coming anyway. And I mean, they actually invited me. And I'm doing another one, Slung Hook, which is on the 25th of October, and I'm getting a friend of mine to run because, again, the run is on gravel. So I'll do the swim and the cycle, and she's going to do the run. So I'm a bit of I make a plan. My dad always says, we used to tease my dad, he always says, a boer maak 'n plan.
Yes.
So my dad's Afrikaans, so I'm kind of a boer, so I always make a plan.
I love the spirit of it, though. You know, it's not, well, we can't really accommodate you. Well, that's fine. I'll just come and do it anyway. Yeah. I love the attitude, though. And I think that's a lot of why you do what you do.
Yeah.
As you said, you got your mind right at one point.
Yeah.
You know, it's that whole mind shift and to decide, I'm not going to sit here and just feel sorry for myself. I'm going to go out there and do what I want to do.
Exactly.
You know, that's actually quite incredible. And it's to get other people to, I don't know, to get that same sort of feeling, because that's your goal, is to let people understand they can be included, they can take part. Don't be put off when somebody says, we can't really accommodate you.
Yeah.
And you sort of pitch up and say, well, actually, no, you can. It's a very simple thing, or I'll just do that and someone else can do the other bit. And, you know, and I don't think people have got maybe the gumption like you have to go out there and say, well, I'm just going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
You know, which is a great thing to have.
Thanks.
How do you get other people to understand that and want to get involved? Do you have people coming up and saying, how do you do this? Can you help me or show me how to do this?
I actually, no. I haven't met people who are looking to get into sports who have disabilities. I think I'm new. Strangely enough, I'm actually new into this. Like, I mean, I've been working for CBM for 3 years now. So that's 3 years I've been getting into sports. So I haven't really got into the circle of the disability sports in South Africa. So I'm still learning.
You're forging the path for the rest of us.
Yeah.
I think is what you're doing.
It does get frustrating sometimes.
Sure
I have to tell you. But I realize sometimes if you're a pioneer in something, you have to take everything it throws at you and just, you know, make a plan.
You're sort of doing all the hard yards at the moment for everybody else.
Yeah.
So I hope those that come after you will sort of have an easier ride, literally, when you know, coming up and trying to get involved with the things that you're doing now.
Yeah.
So you mentioned wanting to do the Ironman at some point, and hopefully next year going overseas to do the New York Triathlon. What else have you got on the cards for the rest of this year or into the new year?
Well, for the rest of this year, so I'm doing a race on the 25th because it's really triathlon season. So I'm trying to get as many races I can in. Strangely enough, I actually haven't completed a race fully. Because I'm still getting at 6 months with my new equipment, so you can imagine my arms are still getting into it. I'm going up to Johannesburg on the 1st of November. There's a 5150 triathlon race, so I'm going to go do that, hopefully finish it. And then I'll be back, and in December there's a triathlon race, Jailbreak, out in Worcester. And so that's my plans for the year. Starting to think about next year would be, I think in April there's the South African champs up in East London I would like to get to, and the New York Triathlon would be a big thing for me to go. Yeah, I think if you think small, you're going to be small. So
You're just making me tired thinking about all these things. What about training? How often do you train, and where do you train?
So I train 6 days a week. 4 of those days are twice a day, so in the morning and the evening. I train at the Sports Science. I have a personal trainer there, Greg Hyson. He's kind of my biokineticist, so he just makes sure the nuts and bolts are still in place, and we do lots of strength training. And then I have a triathlon coach, Neil. He's got his own company for dynamic coaching. And he sets my program for the weeks, and I swim at the Sports Science. And basically, I have an indoor trainer for my hand cycle, so I don't have to go onto the roads because it can get very difficult and hard. So in the weeks, I train in my garage with my hand cycle in and my earphones and blaring music to try and get the boredom of an hour just sitting there in your cycle, just, you know, ticking away. And then my running, I go in my race wheelchair and I literally go in the neighborhood where there's some quiet roads, and I've made myself a bit of a loop that I'll just, again, boring loops, round and round and round. I can't tell you training's not the most interesting thing, but if you don't train, you're going to rock a bit of race and you're going to just fall apart. So,
you do it with a goal in sight, so it's worth it.
Yeah, so I mean, before I came here this evening, I did an hour and 10 minutes on my hand cycle, and you know, it's a lot of mind. You sit there, you're like, really, I got to do this over and over and over. But the interesting thing is, when it gets tough on a race, you realize, wait, hold on, I've put in the miles, so let me just push on. I remember when I swam on Saturday morning, the 3 kilometers, my longest open water swim I swam to date, and you've got to do a 1.5 and then you do a loop again, and I got to the end of the 1.5 and I was like, I'm going to get out, like the end is there. Why would I go for another lap? It's crazy. And then and as I was turning to go for the next lap, I mean, the first guy who was doing the 3 kilometer swim was coming in to finish, and I was like, okay, I'm way behind. But you kind of just, I mean, I had to push through my head and just go, you had to do, just keep going. And so I I set off on my another 1.5 kilometers swim, and I got out, and it was like, wow, you can do that. And I think if you don't train for that in your mind, you're always going to have that during a race. Oh, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? But so besides the physical, it's a lot of mind.
Sadly, I'd think that before I got in the water and not get in to start with. So I wouldn't have got halfway around and then thought, well, I should get out. I wouldn't have got in the first place. Catherine, I think you actually, amazing. What you're achieving in a relatively short space of time that you got into this, and you are flying, literally.
Thank you.
And you honestly look like you're on the path. I can't wait to see you do this Ironman and the New York Triathlon. I have to talk to you once you've done those. It'll be fantastic to find out how you got your mind into doing this, because, you're going to get bored running or cycling or whatever you're doing in any of these things halfway through. Yeah. So I'm dying to know how you coped with that, what you told yourself halfway through the race. Seriously, just keep pedaling, So. I'd really like to chat with you about that. But thank you very much indeed for joining us on the show this evening.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
To find out more about Catherine, you can have a look. There's a website. It's a voice-enabled.blogspot.com. There's also a Facebook page. It's facebook.com/disabled enabled or facebook.com/Catherine.Staden.